On March 4, 2026, Britney Spears was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence in Ventura County, California. This is the story of how one of the best-selling music artists in history ended up handcuffed on the side of the 101 freeway, and why, for millions of people who watched her rise and fall, this moment feels like the latest chapter in a story that never quite found its ending. It started with a black BMW 430i traveling southbound on US 101 at a high rate of speed, moving erratically enough that someone called it in to the California Highway Patrol at 8:48 p.m. on a Wednesday night. Officers pulled the car over near Westlake Boulevard in Ventura County, and behind the wheel was Britney Spears, 44 years old and alone. Field sobriety tests followed, and she was arrested on suspicion of DUI, involving a combination of drugs and alcohol, handcuffed around 9:30 p.m., her car towed from the scene. From there, she went to a hospital, not for injuries, but to have her blood drawn, because chemical testing would be what any actual prosecution would hinge on. Toxicology results were still pending at the time this video was made, meaning her exact blood alcohol content and the specific substances involved were not yet confirmed. Booking at the Ventura County Sheriff's Department came around 3 a.m., and by 6 a.m. Thursday morning, she was out. CHP Public Information Officer Ryan Ayers confirmed the arrest to CNN by phone that morning. Her Instagram account was unavailable. Her representative released a statement, and the language in it went well beyond a routine legal response. The quote was this: "This was an unfortunate incident that is completely inexcusable. Britney is going to take the right steps and comply with the law, and hopefully this can be the first step in long overdue change that needs to occur in Britney's life." The statement went on to say her sons would be spending time with her and that her loved ones would be putting together what they called an overdue needed plan. A court date was set for May 4, 2026, in Ventura County Superior Court. To understand why this arrest landed the way it did, you have to go back to who Britney Spears actually was at her peak, not just as a tabloid story, but as a commercial force that reshaped pop music entirely. Anyone who came of age in the late 90s remembers the moment she arrived. Baby One More Time was followed by Oops, I Did It Again, then I'm a Slave for You, and Womanizer. And for a stretch of years she occupied a level of fame that few artists before or since have matched. Over 150 million records sold worldwide put her among the best-selling musicians in history, and Forbes named her the highest-paid female musician on the planet in both 2000 and 2012. Her 2005 fragrance Fantasy, released through Elizabeth Arden, generated over $1.5 billion in sales by 2011, which tells you everything about the scale of what her name was worth. None of that happened by accident, and none of it prepared her for what came next. The year 2007 is the one that older fans remember, the one where everything seemed to come apart at once and the cameras never stopped rolling. She shaved her head. She struck a paparazzo's car with an umbrella. Custody of her two sons with Kevin Federline slipped away, and a misdemeanor hit-and-run charge followed, though that charge was eventually dismissed after she covered the damages. By early 2008, she'd been hospitalized at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and placed on an involuntary psychiatric hold at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, which in California is classified as a 5150 hold, meaning the state determined she posed a danger to herself. On February 1, 2008, a judge granted a temporary conservatorship over Britney Spears, with her father Jamie Spears and attorney Andrew Wallet named as conservators. That arrangement became permanent in October of 2008 and handed Jamie Spears legal authority over her estate, which sat at roughly $60 million, along with her career and many decisions in her personal life. She was 26 years old when it began, and what nobody expected at the time was that it would last nearly 13 years. Those 13 years weren't quiet. Her career continued operating under the conservatorship even as the public's understanding of what the arrangement actually meant remained limited. By 2019, she announced an indefinite hiatus and shelved a planned Las Vegas residency called Domination. That April, she checked into a mental health facility. Andrew Wallet had resigned from the conservatorship just weeks before. Fans who had been watching closely were already organizing under the hashtag #FreeBritney, raising questions about whether the arrangement was genuinely protective or had become something else, And that conversation stayed largely in the margins until February 2021, when the New York Times documentary, Framing Britney Spears, aired and pulled it into the center of public debate. What followed was one of the more striking reversals in recent pop culture memory, because many of the same outlets and commentators who had spent years mocking her suddenly found themselves reckoning with what had actually happened. In June of 2021, Spears spoke in open court and called the conservatorship abusive, describing restrictions on her body, her choices, and her personal freedom. On November 12, 2021, Judge Brenda Penny terminated it entirely. Freedom from the conservatorship turned out to be a complicated thing, which her life in the years that followed made clear. She married Sam Asghari in June of 2022. Her memoir, The Woman in Me, published in October of 2023, debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And for a moment, it seemed like a chapter that ended cleanly. But that same month, a wellness check was conducted at her Thousand Oaks home after she posted a video of herself dancing with knives on Instagram, and CHP pulled her over for driving without a valid license and without proof of insurance. Her attorney at the time called it the functional equivalent of a parking ticket, and technically he wasn't wrong, but the image of Britney being stopped by officers again had its own weight. By early 2024, the marriage to Asghari was over. In the weeks before March 4th, her Instagram presence consisted largely of videos of herself dancing alone at her Thousand Oaks home, and she had recently secured a permanent restraining order against a man who had repeatedly shown up at her property. And then came the night on the 101 freeway. What the facts add up to is this: a court date on May 4th, 2026, with toxicology results still outstanding and no formal charges beyond the initial suspicion of DUI filed at the time of this video. Legally, she's innocent until proven otherwise, and that matters. But her own representative's statement wasn't written in legal language. Long overdue change and an overdue needed plan are the words of people who are worried about someone, not people managing a PR situation. Over 150 million records sold, 2 Forbes titles as the highest paid female musician in the world, a memoir that hit #1, nearly 13 years inside a conservatorship she fought her way out of, and then, at 44 years old, alone in a car on a California freeway on a Wednesday night. She hasn't released an album since 2016. Her last live performance in the United States was in 2018. The trajectory of her public life since the conservatorship ended has been something people close to her and fans who followed her for decades have watched with a kind of quiet unease. Her representative put it plainly: hopefully this can be the first step in long overdue change. What that change looks like, and whether it arrives, isn't something anyone can answer yet. What's confirmed is that on March 4th, 2026, Britney Spears was arrested on the 101 in Ventura County, and the world noticed, the way it always has, because some stories just don't let go. Whether the response this time amounts to anything different is the only question that actually matters going forward.